So will the Philadelphia Eagles be able to do what they've done to so many teams so far this season and generate a ton of pressure? Well, they got a pretty tough task ahead of themselves, actually. This is the list of offensive linemen for the Kansas City Chiefs going from right to left. So Wiley is the right tackle, Trey Smith right guard, Creed Humphrey center, Joe Thuney left guard, and Orlando Brown Jr. is the left tackle. The ranking next to their names is where they ranked in terms of Pro Football Focus grade among their respective categories. So clearly you look at this and say, wow, 4 of these are very good. The one that's not so much is Andrew Wiley, who, if you note, he played tackle in the Super Bowl a couple years ago when the Chiefs got destroyed by the Buccaneers. So he's definitely hoping he does not become the scapegoat for another, not scapegoat necessarily, but, someone who gets a lot of blame for another Super Bowl loss. But yeah, definitely some interesting stuff. I mean, Creed Humphrey has now played 2 years and has been Pro Football Focus's #1 rated center both years. I mean, that's just impressive. Obviously, Thuney and Smith are very good. And Orlando Brown Jr. is also still good. He might not be elite like some of the other guys, but he still is very good. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, I'm going to show their, some of their pass rushers. The ones on top are their edge rushers. The ones on bottom are their interior defensive linemen. So Reddick, Sweat, Graham, and Robert Quinn are the kind of the 4 guys who've gotten the most snaps. Robert Quinn, though, they traded for him. Hasn't really worked out the way they hoped. It was kind of a flyer trade. He was coming off of, he wasn't playing well for the Bears. They figured, hey, maybe a change of scenery would help. So far, hasn't done it. 116th out of 120 eligible pass rushers. But of course, Reddick, Sweat, and Graham have all been fantastic when they've been out there. They can rotate, and so they stay fresh. Those are definitely guys that when we get into the film portion of this, we're going to talk in more detail about. Also, Javon Hargrave, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox hasn't been as dominant as we've seen him in years past, but that's okay because the other guys still have been very good and have more than picked up for any potential slack. So, and again, for a rotational guy, definitely some still 70th is not bad necessarily. But what makes them so impactful is the plethora of guys they have. So kind of one of the biggest mismatches you think right away is, okay, whoever's going to be on Andrew Wiley as a pass rusher, as an edge rusher, that could be a mismatch. But let's talk about this play, because this is something you can do, is you can, just have a halfback help out the right side of your line, right? If you have one weakness, that's actually not the end of the world because you know where to help. Now, there could still be some potential issues, as if you know who's getting double teamed, you can plan accordingly, but still, we saw it against Cincinnati where they just had a halfback chip. I mean, this is something Andy Reid will do. Yes, he's very pass happy. Yes, he loves to throw to halfbacks, but he also will have help out an offensive lineman who needs it. Again, the Super Bowl they didn't really do that, but I think since then they have done that when they needed to, and this might be a game where you just do this. Watch how, Sam Hubbard, he gets double teamed, and because of that, Patrick Mahomes now, you look at him, he has a completely clean pocket. So yeah, sure, there was a mismatch, but when you double team the mismatch, it's now no longer a mismatch. That gave time for Mahomes to make the throw, nearly threw a touchdown as well, just fell incomplete there, but still, he had the time he needed to make the throw, and that's all an offensive line can do. However, I want to talk about somebody else that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but I want to talk about him a little bit more. This is going to be Orlando Brown Jr. One of the things about him is that he's, very good, but he is susceptible to getting beat with speed, as we're going to see here by Joseph Osai. Watch how when this play begins, you see how far to the outside Osai gets to where Brown on this play, you see his left hand, he just can't get it that far over. It's kind of on Osai's sort of left side of his body. He really wants to get it all the way to Osai's right side of his body, which would be as close to the left side of the screen as possible. But because of the speed of Osai, he's using that as a way to attack Orlando Brown. As you see, Osai is able to generate a pressure. Somehow Mahomes finds a way to get rid of the football because he's Mahomes and he's weird. But, that's something that when I saw that, when I thought about that, it made me think, wait a second. The Philadelphia Eagles have a pretty fast pass rusher that could generate some issues. I am, of course, talking about Hassan Reddick, who's been wreaking havoc on these, every team he's been playing in this postseason. Although worth noting, he tends to play against, right tackles as opposed to left tackles. But, whether he's going up against Wiley or Brown, he should be able to make this stuff happen, where it's a one-on-one matchup. As you see right when it begins, it's kind of very similar to the last one, right? This time it's Evan Neal, but he just cannot get his hands over. Now Evan Neal's using his left hand to try to get the contact, and he has it on Reddick's back, so this is not working out well for Evan Neal at all, but it's largely due to Reddick's explosiveness. As you see, Reddick is able to get the corner, and while he didn't actually touch Daniel Jones, he still was the reason that was a sack, as Jones stepped up in the pocket because of the pressure behind him, tripped over his own offensive lineman. So because of the explosiveness of Reddick, it does make me wonder, what's the strategy here for Philadelphia? Do you put Reddick on, just have him play on Wiley, have him play on the right tackle, which is still a mismatch, or do you try to potentially get multiple mismatches by putting him against a guy like Orlando Brown Jr., who he matches up well against? It's just a fascinating strategy that I see both sides logically too. One more thing though is I should mention, just because there's a chip does not mean that it's a guarantee that that you're not going to have pressure. And just to be clear, what a chip means is just a halfback runs over, blocks the edge rusher for a second, but then goes and runs a route. That's what that means. And you see right here, the Giants are paying attention to Reddick. They just had him on the very last play get to Daniel Jones, so they're saying, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's help out our young tackle Evan Neal. Okay, Saquon Barkley, we're going to have you just block him for a second, then go run your route. Makes sense. Seems simple enough. But the Eagles are going to do something very different here. Watch this stunt where you're going to see Reddick pull all the way over. He gets to a center, drives through the center, and tackles Daniel Jones. Now, again, Jones got the ball off. Just kind of weird play there. But, what happens... But the reason I'm bringing this up is to show that just because you have a halfback on the play does not mean that, they can find ways to get around that. The Eagles do find ways to get around that. They're very creative in how they deploy their pass rushers and how they put them in the best position imaginable. Now, there's a couple issues here. One is that, the Giants actually played this well. The center was able to get off, pass off the defensive tackle and get in position to block Reddick. He just wasn't able to actually, block him. That was the issue. Creed Humphrey, as I mentioned, PFF's #1 rated center in every year he's been a pro. In both years he's been a pro. He's not going to give up the pressure the way that, the Giants center just did on that play. And so because of that, yes, well, this worked this time. Will it consistently work? That remains to be seen. That is very much a question mark, and that's why if you're if you are an Eagles fan, you can't get too excited about this stuff, because there are ways that the Chiefs can kind of counteract it. I think making sure that they help out Wiley is something they're going to be doing a lot. But again, are you going to do it every snap? Maybe not. And on those snaps you don't, I do think the Eagles could find some way to get pressure. I don't think this is going to be as much of a domination in terms of the pressure department as we saw against the Giants and even against the 49ers. 49ers maybe didn't pay as much attention to those guys as they should have. But here, you have 2 weeks. You're going to pay attention. It's a major storyline. The Chiefs are going to help out their tackles, I would assume. And if they do, that is when, you can maybe get some time to throw. However, again, it's not the worst thing in the world to, hey, at least you have to take away a halfback out of the play and, disrupt that. There's worse things to do with your pass rush than that. So there's still benefits to this pass rush, and it's still going to help them out in this game. The question is going to be how much. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. If you like movies, check out my movie review channel. Every single movie title you see on the screen, I have a video about coming out within the next 2 weeks. I'm uploading a video every day for 2 weeks, so definitely make sure you're subscribed there. The link is in the description below. I got some other stuff on there too, some like breakdowns of certain scenes I like and things like that, so check it out.